Imagine walking through the narrow, chaotic streets of Rome's Subura district in the year 160 AD. The air is thick with the smell of wood smoke, roasted meats, and unwashed crowds. You stop at a small apothecary stall set up in broad daylight. You aren't sneaking into a dark alley to meet a criminal, and you aren't looking over your shoulder for the city guards. You hand over a few bronze coins, and the merchant hands you a small, dark, sticky pellet wrapped in a dried leaf. It's raw opium resin, harvested from poppy fields in Egypt. If you asked a Roman citizen if they were buying drugs, they would probably look at you with total confusion. Ancient Rome had no concept of an illegal drug war. There were no controlled substance acts, no DEA, and no underground cartels. Yet, the Roman Empire ran on a staggering array of mind-altering botanicals, ranging from daily narcotics and hallucinogenic plants to spiked wines that could cause severe delirium. Whether they were seeking surgical pain relief, coping with the brutal stress of imperial rule, or looking for a high at an elite dinner party, the Romans regularly altered their minds. Here's the untold story of the substances that fueled the Roman Empire, how they were used, and why the most powerful man in the ancient world was secretly dependent on a daily dose of narcotics. The imperial addiction, opium, and Marcus Aurelius. If there was a king among mind-altering substances in the Roman world, it was Papaver somniferum, the opium poppy. Opium was not a rare luxury. It was a cheap, widely available commodity sold in markets across the Mediterranean. Doctors prescribed it for almost everything: chronic dysentery, coughs, insomnia, severe injury, and psychological trauma. The Romans consumed opium primarily as lacrima papaveris, the dried latex sap scraped from green poppy pods. It could be dissolved in wine, swallowed in pills, or mixed into complex herbal syrups. And its most famous user was none other than the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius is remembered today as the ultimate Stoic philosopher, a man of iron discipline who wrote meditations while campaigning against Germanic tribes along the freezing Danube frontier. But behind his calm philosophical facade was a man suffering from severe, debilitating stomach pains and chronic insomnia. To keep the emperor functional, his personal physician, the legendary medical pioneer Galen, prescribed a daily dose of a legendary potion called theriac. Theriac was an intricate cure-all formula containing over 60 ingredients, including viper flesh, cinnamon, myrrh, honey, and a massive dose of opium. Marcus Aurelius took his theriac every single day. Galen noted in his writings that when the emperor tried to stop taking the mixture, he suffered from severe abdominal cramps, cold sweats, and extreme restlessness, classic symptoms of opioid withdrawal. To keep his ruler from collapsing, Galen had to remove certain bitter ingredients while keeping the opium content steady. Marcus Aurelius was, by all modern medical definitions, physically dependent on opium. The philosopher-emperor was waging world wars and writing foundational Stoic texts while operating under the daily influence of a potent narcotic. And he was far from alone. Opium dependency was so widespread among the Roman elite that physicians like Galen wrote extensively about the physical decline and lethargy seen in long-term users. Yet, opium remained completely legal, untaxed as a vice, and readily available to anyone with a few copper coins. Spiked wine, wormwood, and lead poisoning. To an ancient Roman, alcohol was not considered a separate category from drugs. Wine was the baseline liquid of daily life. But Roman wine was nothing like the wine you buy at a store today. It was thick, syrupy, and highly concentrated, rarely consumed straight. Drinking unmixed wine was viewed as a mark of uncivilized barbarians. Instead, Romans diluted their wine with water and heavily fortified it with psychoactive botanicals. Roman winemakers and hosts frequently infused their barrels with herbs like wormwood, creating an ancient precursor to absinthe. They added myrrh, pine resin, mandrake root, and nightshade berries to alter the flavor, extend shelf life, and intentionally enhance the wine's intoxicating effects. A bowl of Roman party wine wasn't just alcoholic, it was a potent botanical cocktail. But there was another hidden substance in Roman wine that produced a very different kind of high: lead. To sweeten cheap wines and prevent spoilage, Roman cooks created a syrup called defrutum or sapa. They took unfermented grape juice and boiled it down slowly in large pots. Crucially, they insisted on using lead pans because lead reacted with the fruit acids to produce lead acetate, a compound literally known as sugar of lead. This sweet, lead-drenched syrup was poured into wine, drizzled over fruit, and used to preserve meat. As a result, the Roman aristocracy consumed massive quantities of bioavailable lead on a daily basis. While lead poisoning doesn't produce an immediate euphoria, chronic exposure causes neurological damage, memory loss, severe irritability, and cognitive decline. Some historians argue that the erratic, borderline psychotic behavior of emperors like Caligula and Nero may have been heavily exacerbated by a lifetime of drinking lead-sweetened, plant-infused wine. Cannabis snacks and dinner party highs. While cannabis was grown across the Roman Empire primarily as hemp for industrial rope, sailcloth, and clothing, Romans were fully aware of its psychoactive properties. Unlike modern users who smoke cannabis, the Romans preferred to eat it. The physician Galen wrote about the common social practice of serving toasted cannabis seeds at elite dinner parties. He noted that hosts would offer these warm seeds as a dessert or post-meal snack to encourage conversation and cheerfulness. Galen recorded that consuming these seeds in large quantities produced a warm feeling and a distinct heavy-headed sensation, though he warned that eating too many would leave guests with a throbbing headache and a feeling of dehydration. The writer Pliny the Elder also described a plant he called gelatophilus, which translates literally to laughing leaf, found in Bactria and regions along the eastern trade routes. He noted that when consumed in wine with myrrh, it caused people to experience wild visions and laugh uncontrollably. While historians debate whether this was a high-potency cannabis strain or another psychoactive herb, it proves the Romans were actively cataloging plants that altered mood and perception. Surgical anesthesia and hallucinogenic nightshades. When Romans needed something stronger than opium or cannabis, particularly for brutal surgical operations like limb amputations or trepanation, they turned to the Solanaceae family of plants: mandrake, henbane, and belladonna. These plants contain potent tropane alkaloids like scopolamine and atropine. In small doses, they cause deep sedation and dry mouth. In moderate doses, they produce powerful, often terrifying delirium and visual hallucinations. In high doses, they stop the heart. Mandrake was the primary surgical anesthetic of the ancient Mediterranean. The physician Dioscorides wrote in his masterwork De Materia Medica that doctors would boil mandrake root in wine and give it to patients before cutting or burning their flesh. He noted that after drinking the mandrake potion, the patient would sink into a deep, death-like sleep, completely insensible to pain. However, nightshades also had a darker, recreational side. Henbane, Hyoscyamus niger, was sometimes added to beer or wine in secret to induce wild visions. Roman texts mention witches, fortune-tellers, and cult rituals using nightshade preparations to induce trances, perform divinations, or contact the underworld. The line between medicine, a hallucinogenic trip, and a fatal poison was razor-thin. Roman doctors knew that a few drops too many of mandrake wine meant the patient would never wake up. The Roman philosophy of intoxication. Why didn't the Romans outlaw these powerful substances? To understand the Roman mindset, you have to look at how they viewed personal freedom and social class. In Rome, morality was not dictated by what substance entered your body, but by whether you maintained self-control and personal authority. If an elite Roman used opium to manage military pain or drank spiked wine at a dinner party while remaining articulate, composed, and productive, society had zero issue with it. Substance use wasn't seen as a moral failing. Losing control was. The ultimate sin in Roman culture was surrendering your reason and becoming a slave to a compulsion. If a senator drank so much spiked wine or consumed so much opium that he neglected his public duties, lost his temper in the Senate, or acted like a fool in public, he was ruthlessly shamed. Not because the drug was illegal, but because he had shown a weak, un-Roman character. The Romans recognized addiction, physical overdose, and dependency. They saw their emperors struggle with opium and their citizens drown in alcohol, but they treated these issues as individual tests of character rather than criminal offenses. The legacy of Roman mind alteration. The ancient Romans lived in a brutal, unpredictable world filled with constant disease, horrific surgical procedures, and relentless war. Without modern pharmaceuticals, antibiotics, or synthetic painkillers, they relied entirely on the botanical world around them to numb physical pain, ease psychological distress, and find brief moments of escape. From the dirt floors of peasant huts to the marble palaces of Marcus Aurelius, mind-altering substances were woven into the very fabric of daily Roman life. They didn't see drugs as a separate, forbidden category. They saw them as tools to be managed, enjoyed, or endured. So the next time you think about ancient Rome, don't just picture marble statues, marching legions, and gladiatorial games. Picture an empire operating under a continuous, subtle haze of opium, botanically spiked wine, and psychoactive herbs, where even the greatest philosopher on earth needed a daily dose of narcotics just to face the day.